This is the Gerry Callahan Show.
Well, it looks like he's done it again. Yes, once again, Donald Trump has taken a position, has done something that is clearly necessary, that is overdue, that is welcome by most law-abiding citizens. And he has forced, at the same time, Democrats and the media to take a very unpopular position. Hell, take an illogical position. This is what Trump does. He just does things that make common sense. There's nothing ideological about this. He's using federal troops, National Guard, to fight crime in D.C. It's something the residents of D.C. Welcome. Doesn't matter if they're white or black or Democrat or Republican. They know they have a crime problem, and Trump is doing something about it. Once again, an issue that he campaigned on, an issue that makes all the sense in the world. Yes, it's happened before. It'll happen again. Closing the border, deporting MS-13 gang members, ending wars, boys and girls sports, men and women's spaces. Trump takes a position that is wildly popular, that makes all the sense in the world, and Democrats and the media, for the most part, have no choice. They have to oppose him because the orange man is bad and anything he does is wrong. So we saw this unfold yesterday. Trump makes the announcement, says he's going to send in federal troops, 800 National Guardsmen, to help local law enforcement because they have a big crime problem in D.C. And Democrats and the media immediately start screaming and saying, oh, crime is down in D.C. Crime is down. This isn't necessary. This is an overreach. Well, talk to the people in those neighborhoods. Talk to the store owners who've had their stores ransacked. Talk to the people who've been mugged. As the old saying goes, a conservative is a liberal who's been mugged. Well, there's a lot of liberals who've been mugged and carjacked and attacked and hurt by criminals, many of them kids in D.C. To sit there and say this isn't a problem is to say the sky is purple and up is down. That's Trump's greatest gift. His opposition is insane. And we saw this yesterday. Trump comes out, makes the announcement immediately, whether it was NBC, Ken Delanian, Deep State Delanian, or Peter Baker from the New York Times saying, "Oh, Trump is going overboard here because crime is not really a big problem." Oh, really? You have kids, 14, 15-year-olds carjacking people. You have tourists who can't walk the streets at night. You have a congressional intern from UMass, from Massachusetts, murdered in a random drive-by shooting just a little over a month ago. And you're going to stand there and say, let's do nothing. Let's just let this continue. Let's let our nation's capital descend into total lawlessness. That's what Trump that is trying to prevent. He's trying to save lives, trying to make our capital safe again. And you're going to fight that? You're going to oppose that? Making our capital safe again? This was a remarkable moment yesterday. Trump held a press conference, went on forever, as usual, with Pete Hegseth, Janine Pirro, with all the people, with Pam Bondi, making this announcement. And I'm thinking, imagine being a D.C. resident who is afraid to go outside, who's afraid to drive down the street, and you have a president who's actually doing something about it, and you're against that? What? Here's Trump yesterday making the announcement.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that.
All right. So then they make the announcement. Janine Pirro was terrific here, talking about how young kids, 14, 15-year-olds, are untouchable because they cannot charge them in adult court. They can't put them in prison. They send them to do arts and crafts and yoga class. They did a great job here outlining, explaining the problem. This is days after Big Balls from the Doge team got beaten up by a gang of 10 or 12 kids. They tried to carjack Big Ball's girlfriend's car. He put her in the car. She took off. He stayed there and took a beating. He's lucky to be alive. He's got a concussion. They broke his nose. It was 3 a.m. and there were at least 10, 14 and 15-year-olds out. You're going to say there's not a problem in DC? It's a real deep-seated issue here. We have kids, probably fatherless, maybe motherless, just roaming the streets, making it unsafe in our nation's capital. And you don't want to do anything about that? This is just amazing. Here's Janine Pirro explaining the real issue here. Hell, all the crime stats that NBC and the New York Times are referring to, that doesn't even include kids. Juvenile crime, which is out of control. Kids who aren't old enough to drive, carjacking. Here's the numbers, by the way, on carjacking in DC. In 2018, there were 148 carjackings. In 2023, there were 957, almost 1,000 carjackings in one city in DC. And here's some more numbers. DC had the fourth highest homicide rate in the U.S. in 2024. 27 homicides per 100,000 people. DC's homicide rate is 6 times higher than New York City. DC's homicide rate is 4 times higher than LA. DC's homicide rate more than doubles Newark, New Jersey. It beats out Atlanta, Chicago, Compton, and Oakland. And that was 2024. And you know what the media all said yesterday? Yeah, but it's down in 2025. So what if it is? It's down from historic highs. It's down, but it's still out of control. The idea that you're going to measure the first 6 months of this year and say, wow, crime rate's coming down. Forget that UMass intern murdered. Forget the Doge guy beaten on the streets by a bunch of teenagers. Crime rates are down. Oh, we'll get to that. There's a real issue with the crime rates because they have fudged them. They have lied. A DC commander of the DC Police Department is on suspension for faking, for lying about crime stats just to keep them low and give NBC and the New York Times a talking point. But Janine Pirro, when she took this job, I was thinking, man, she's kind of old and, maybe you need a young guy. I think she's doing a terrific job because she's a really articulate, a good spokesman. And this was probably the highlight of this press conference where she explained how and why these kids, these 14 and 15-year-olds are getting away with these violent crimes, with these carjackings and muggings and shootings in our nation's capital. Check this out.
I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest. Intent to kill? I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the DC Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, a no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens. And it starts today. But it's not going to end today, because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And my final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the state attorney general, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids, because I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today. Thank you, Mr. President.
It changes today. Well, let's hope. It is amazing that everyone agrees it's not safe to walk the nation's capital, to walk by the White House where the president lives, to walk by the Capitol. It's not safe. And Democrats don't want to do anything about it. Here's Ken Delaney from NBC. He's the voice of the deep state, the establishment, and he always has been. If you want to know what they're thinking in the intelligence community, in the swamp, go to Ken Delaney. He writes, Trump announces he's seizing control of DC's police force as he rolls out a series of false and misleading claims about crime in the city, which is at historic lows. Historic lows. We just went through the numbers. Almost 1,000 carjackings last year, and I would guess many of them by kids. And NBC wants you to think there's no reason to do anything about this. There's no reason to bring in the National Guard. The National Guard exists for situations like this, to help, to reinforce the local police. And I'll bet you every single law-abiding citizen there is saying, thank you, Trump. Thank you, Janine Pirro, for helping make our communities safer. Democrats just can't help themselves. This is what they do. They see Trump did something, so they immediately drop a dime to their favorite NBC or New York Times reporter and say, crime's at an all-time low. We don't have to do anything. Let's just let these gangs, these mobs, they're out there on their ATVs and their dirt bikes, and the police aren't allowed to chase them. So if you're in DC, you see this. You see these groups, these mobs of kids on dirt bikes and ATVs. They know the cops won't chase them. They're not allowed to. So they just terrorize the neighborhoods and the tourists. And Democrats say, why bother? Why bother? They have a problem, though, because the people Trump is are protecting, the people who are the victims of this crime wave, are working class people, in many cases, Black people who live in the bad neighborhoods and can't go outside. And many of them were interviewed, and sometimes the media actually aired these interviews. Hell, there was a wild scene last night. There was a protest against Trump, against this move, this measure. And at about the same time, 2 blocks away, someone was shot dead. That's DC today. This group, this mob that's opposing this, that's screaming about it, are just out of their minds. I mean, this is the voice of the resistance on at this moment. And it's not a real articulate, not a really smart voice. These are people, again, who just have to reflexively, instinctively oppose whatever Trump does. They don't even take the time to think it through and say, wouldn't it be nice to have a safe capital city? Wouldn't it be nice if we could all go out at night and a nice summer night and take a walk? No, here they are screaming about the fascist Donald Trump.
The president has been trying to provoke violence here, right here, in the Black communities and in the brown communities, having ICE kidnap our neighbors, having the Black community be harassed and profiled and want a response. We say, hell no, we won't go. Hell no, we won't go. We won't go. Hell no, we won't go. When we say we won't go, that means we're not going to those mass incarceration, into their prisons and enslavement. We won't go into their ICE, what he call his beautiful centers that he got. We won't go to where alligators live. Hell no, we won't go. 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 Today we gather to speak plainly about policy path that sounds strong, but in truth, it weakens the very safety we seek. We believe there is a better way to protect us all. One that respects rights to build trust and keep our communities truly safe.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Justice for free. Free is not a roadmap to safety. It is a burial. It fails hardest on the Black communities that already we bear a disproportionate share of surveillance, stops, and forces.
How is it a barrier? Honest to God, what a moron. Honest to God, can't you just say, we got a problem, let's fix it? It could only be 30 days with these National Guard troops to stop the bleeding in D.C., but they don't like it. They would rather live in fear. They would rather stay home, locked inside their homes after dark. Here's the story from last night. A man was shot and killed in Washington, D.C. Monday, just hours after President Trump announced a federal takeover of the city's police department. The victim was found at the 1200 block of 12th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C.'s Logan Circle neighborhood at 7 p.m. A Metropolitan Police Department spokesperson said, a guy was shot dead during this protest where they were marching in the streets and screaming about this move Trump made. Again, the argument against this, the resistance to this is just incoherent and insane when you think about it. They actually issued in DC air tags to drivers so they might be able to locate their car after it got hijacked. They issued instructions to try and always drive in the center lane, drive with your windows up and your doors locked. That's their answer. If you're in DC, if you're a politician or a cop in DC, your answer to the carjacking was, here's an air tag. Maybe after you get your car stolen, you get beaten, maybe killed, we'll be able to find your car. Incredible. Let's get to the local ABC reporter. Here's the problem they have is everybody who lives and works there, who's being honest, knows there's a problem. I was with some people from DC yesterday, and they were like, oh, crime's down. Crime's down. Did you hear? Reading the talking points. And I said, do you feel safe? Could you walk around DuPont Circle? Could you walk past the nation's capital after dark? Of course not. They wouldn't dare. They just say, no. Well, wouldn't you like to? Wouldn't that make sense? I mean, it's not just some city. It's our capital. There's a lot of people who would like to walk around the capital and look at the sights and appreciate all the history, and they can't because raving gangs of 14-year-olds are terrorizing the city. Here's an ABC anchor, local anchor, who went off script when discussing this. I'm not sure she was supposed to say this, but credit to her for being honest. Go ahead.
We've been talking so much about the numbers, and yeah, usually that's how you play devil's advocate, is you talk about, oh, well, stats say crime is down. However, I can tell you firsthand here in downtown DC where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. One person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand while working and living down here.
Crime is down, but it's still way too high. Why is that hard to understand? Trump wasn't president last year. If he were, maybe we would have done this a year ago. Maybe if Trump were president last year, maybe Eric, I always struggle with this name, Eric, I'll get it, Tarpinian Jackham. Maybe Eric Tarpinian Jackham would be alive today. He's the 21-year-old intern from UMass. He was interning for a Republican congressman from Kansas, just trying to get some experience in D.C. in the summertime before going back to school. He's a Massachusetts kid, by all accounts, a great kid. He was out getting McDonald's at 10 o'clock at night, shot dead in a random drive-by shooting. There are no suspects. There's no arrests. His family is destroyed. And I have to ask, does he matter, Democrats? Does he matter to you? Ken Delanian and Ayanna Pressley? It was a kid, doing probably a dream summer job, interning. And he's out getting something to eat at 10 o'clock at night. He wasn't the target. He wasn't mugged. He was just shot dead. And his family is destroyed. His mother, Tamara Jackham, was on with our friend Rob Finnerty last night. Why don't we see her? I asked yesterday, Trump should have brought her to the press conference. Why don't we see her on NBC, with Ken Delanian? Why don't we see her on with Morning Joe? They don't want you to hear from this woman who is the face of this problem, this scourge in our nation's capital. But she went on with Rob and told her story. Trump mentioned him at the press conference, but he didn't say his name, probably because it's too tough. Eric Tarpinian Jackham, a senior at UMass from Granby, Mass, who is just another victim. Crime is down. Does that make you feel better, Mom? Crime is down. That's what Ayanna Pressley told me. That's what Ken Delanian told me. You feel better now, Mom? Listen to this.
And today, the president does this. He places Washington under federal control. What was your reaction to that news?
I was watching it. My daughter was on the couch, and I was sitting in the chair. Eric's ashes in front of me in his pitcher and some dried flowers. And I could not believe what I heard. And he actually said a 21-year-old intern, and I started to cry. And I said, Eric, you didn't die in vain. They care about you. They care about you. Things are going to change so nobody else has to relive what we lived. Hopefully, that's what the goal is, safety in DC. And it made me feel so good inside that this didn't fall upon dead ears with this president and his administration for all the people who have been harmed by serious crime in DC.
They don't want you to hear from her. Democrats never want you to hear from victims. They don't, they didn't mention Rachel Marin or Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungreen nearly as much as they mentioned Kilma Abrego Garcia. He was the victim, the human trafficker, white beater, MS-13 gang member. That was their priority. Protecting illegals was the priority over the victims of illegal alien criminals. But it is an amazing thing when you know people who've been murdered in the streets. A congressional intern murdered in the streets, and Democrats didn't reach out to the family. Trump sent them a letter. No Democrat, not the governor, neither senators, no congressperson reached out to the family, which is no surprise. They're trying to protect the 14-year-old gangbangers. Here's what Ayanna Pressley, a congresswoman from the state this poor kid lived in, this victim, she tweets last night after, she probably didn't see that, but after we heard from many, many victims. She tweets out, a man who wanted to lynch the exonerated 5 is now unlawfully deploying the National Guard and taking over the police department of DC, a beautiful, vibrant, majority Black city that has been denied the rights and protections of statehood. A beautiful, vibrant, majority Black city? This is disgusting. This is another woman. She's obsessed with race. She is a virulent racist. She cares about nothing except dividing people along racial lines and protecting illegal aliens. The victims are mostly Black. I mean, I went through the numbers. I responded to this and went through the numbers. And you know what? If you really did care about Black lives, if Black Lives Matter, you would be all on board with this. You know why? Because the people who are the victims of these gangs, who are the victims of this violence, are mostly Black. But just like in Chicago or Oakland or Baltimore or anywhere else where you have a real crime problem, the victims are mostly Black. Many of them, of the murder victims, obviously the congressional intern of Big Balls. It wasn't a local resident, but many of the local residents. Yeah, I looked this up. So far this year, there have been 112 murders and 1,600 violent crimes in D.C. There were 273 murders in 2023 and 187 last year. Almost all of them were Black. Ayanna Pressley doesn't care. It doesn't matter. She just says it's a beautiful, vibrant city. Do we have any interviews with the locals who most of them were Black and said, we need this, we want this? But she doesn't care about them. She cares about the 14-year-old gangbanger. She wants him to go to yoga and arts and crafts after he gets busted with an illegal gun. That's what's happening in D.C. And people like Ayanna don't care. They don't care about victims. They never have. And it's just a shame that we send people like this hateful woman, this soulless ghoul to Congress. It doesn't matter to her. That there's a real problem. You want to know the real problem that Ayanna Pressley will not talk about? That Ken Delaney or Joe Scarborough will not talk about? Just a throwaway number that someone mentioned last night, and I wrote it down. In D.C., 77% of children are born to unwed mothers. 53% live in fatherless homes, and they are 20 times more likely to end up in prison than kids who are raised with two parents. Those 14-year-olds who beat the hell out of Big Balls, who are out on the street at 3 a.m., they're not in two-parent homes. They don't have fathers. Hell, many of them probably don't have mothers. That question is never asked. What the hell are they out roaming the streets at 3 a.m. At the age of 14 or 15? Janine Pirro is vowing to do something about it. And people like Pressley will fight her. We'll fight to preserve the current system where these kids know there's no price to pay for shoplifting or carjacking or just terrorizing the neighborhood on their stolen ATV. They don't care. They just want to continue this system where there's no accountability, no price to pay, and nobody can walk the streets safely in our nation's capital. Do we have any more from these locals who most of whom are happy that many of them are absolutely out of their minds and just hate Trump. But it was a real interesting kind of dynamic where you had some people saying, thank God they're doing something, and others just hate the president. That's it. But here's some of the demonstrations and some of the outspoken local residents yesterday after Trump made this announcement.
Free DC! Free DC!
This is about what Trump is trying to do to DC in order to take over DC and silence us. This is the story of a ruler who is trying to oppress a people and who's causing real harm to real communities in the process.
I believe that we will win! I believe that we will win!
All right, lady, tell me how he's causing real harm. I would love to hear her answer that. How is it causing real harm to send reinforcements to help the cops in D.C. try to stop this madness? Can you explain that? Oh, yeah, here's another great talking point. We'll get to this because you knew it was coming from the establishment media and Democrats that, Trump didn't send in the National Guard on January 6th. But now he's willing to send in the National Guard. There's a little flaw in that. And Nancy Pelosi got absolutely owned by the former chief of the Capitol City Police. We will get to that. Oh, and more great news. Trump is on a roll, man. Adam Schiff, it now appears, I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but it appears Adam Schiff is in real trouble. I do think the day is coming. Justice is coming. I think Shifty Schiff is going to end up in an orange jumpsuit, and maybe pretty soon. And, we got to get to this too. Scott Jennings was brawling it up with the liberals on CNN about Trump's effort to stop wars, which by any account, by any definition, has really been quite a success these last 6 months. And what are they going to do Friday if he indeed sits down with Putin in Alaska and stops that stupid war, they're not going to handle that well. This is going to be absolute insanity if Trump indeed stops the killing in Ukraine. We'll get to that and much more. But first,
Excuse me.
if you've ever searched for your name or address on Google, it's shocking to find how many results have your personal information, and it's not by chance. Data brokers and people search sites, collect your personal information, your name, address, phone number, financial info, income, and hundreds of other records. They sell it and share it publicly without your consent. But Incogni is here to put an end to that. It hunts down these unethical sites and gets your info removed from the places that expose your private information. You don't have to email anyone, fill out forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire process for you. Incogni is also continually monitoring if your data is put back into these databases, requesting repeated removals. This way, it keeps them off there forever. So you get fewer spam calls, spam emails, and you get more peace of mind. And best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code word Callahan. That's incogni, incogni.com/Callahan, and use the code word Callahan at checkout. You get 60% off and protect your data for an entire year. This could be my favorite reaction to Trump's decision to send in the National Guard to stop the crime wave in our nation's capital. Nancy Pelosi comes out and posts this. This is incredible. Donald Trump delayed deploying the National Guard on January 6th when our capital was under violent attack and lives were at stake. Now he's activating the DC Guard to distract from his incompetent handling of tariffs, healthcare, education, and immigration, just to name a few blunders. That's from the Speaker Emeritus, or whatever her silly-ass title is. Well, immediately after posting that, Stephen Sund, who was in charge of the Capitol Police on January 6th, did a quick fact check. First of all, on January 6th, there was one murder. That was Ashley Babbitt, shot by this incompetent DC cop, Capital City cop, Michael Byrd. That was it. There were no 187 murders, no carjackings on that day. And everybody who broke the law, who assaulted a cop, paid a heavy price. They went to prison. And oftentimes they were put in jail before no bail. It's another thing. And Trump went off, and so did and Pirro went off on the no cash bail. How does that make any sense? How does that make a city safer when you have no cash bail? It's just a stupid, faculty lounge thing here, at Columbia, no cash bail, because it's not fair to have bail. Well, bail does two things. It assures the guy comes back to court, and it protects the community if he doesn't make bail. But here's the former Capitol Chief Stephen Sund. He writes, "Ma'am, it's long past time to be honest with the American people. On January 3rd, I requested National Guard assistance, but your sergeant at arms denied it. Under federal law, I was prohibited from calling them in without specific approval. That same day, Carol Corbett at the Pentagon offered National Guard support, but I was forced to decline because I lacked the legal authority. On January 6th, while the Capitol was under attack, and despite my repeated calls, your sergeant at arms again denied my urgent request for over 70 agonizing minutes, running it up the chain for your approval. When I needed assistance, it was denied. Yet when it suited you, you ordered fencing topped with wire and surrounded the Capitol with thousands of armed National Guard troops." That is the truth. The reason the National Guard was not deployed was Nancy Pelosi, who later admitted in her daughter's little documentary that it was her fault. She said it was her responsibility. She denied the National Guard because she wanted what happened on January 6th to happen and use it politically. And God, did they use it? They're still using it. They're still talking about January 6th as if there's any comparison to a bunch of people out of control, protesters, and a years-long crime wave, which is led by a bunch of kids without fathers. Dana Bash, of course, played right along, as many in the media did. It's their go-to response to anything. January 6th. We're going to be sitting here in 20 years, and they're going to be talking about January 6th. It's their favorite holiday, January 6th. Here's Dana Bash, again, bringing up January 6th after Trump deployed the National Guard to stop the killing in D.C.
I should note that the most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th. And it was an attack on the United States Capitol by a lot of people who were doing it in the name of Donald Trump. And it included the people who were hurt, included members of law enforcement.
The most violent moment. Tell that to Tamar Jackham, who lost her son to just a random drive-by shooting. And you want to tell her? Tell that to Big Balls. Tell that to the 2 embassy workers gunned down in D.C. A few months ago. Tell that to the what was the number again? 957 people who were carjacked in 2023 in our nation's capital, that the most violent day in D.C. was a protest that Nancy Pelosi set up. These people are just deranged. Speaking of deranged, we got to get to the story. It looks like Adam Schiff, and we know he's in trouble for lying on his mortgage, for claiming he had 2 primary residents to save money. He's guilty. That's black and white. There's no question about it. I'm not sure that will put him in jail, but this should. This is from Just the News, breaking last night. A career intelligence officer who worked for Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee for more than a decade repeatedly warned that the FBI, beginning in 2027, that Adam Schiff had approved leaking classified information to smear Donald Trump over the now debunked Russiagate scandal, according to bombshell FBI memos that Kash Patel has turned over to Congress. The FBI interview reports obtained by Just the News state that intelligence staffer, a Democrat who described himself as a friend to both Schiff and Republican House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes, considered the classified leaking to be, quote, unethical, illegal, and treasonous, but was told not to worry about it because Schiff believed he would be spared prosecution under the Constitution's speech and debate clause. And they released this, Kash Patel released this evidence. I don't know if you can blow that up for me. Go ahead, read the, here we go. Now get rid of me. When working in this capacity, the whistleblower was called to an all-staff meeting by Schiff. In this meeting, Schiff stated that the group would leak classified information which was derogatory to the President of the United States. Schiff stated that the information would be used to indict President Trump. Leaking classified information, I'm pretty sure, is a serious federal crime. This is a sitting congressman, a guy who's now a senator of our biggest state. And man, that looks to me pretty cut and dried. It sounds like Shifty Schiff is in real trouble. I'm not sure why John Thune wouldn't remove him from all committees, censure him, whatever it takes. But you know the media will give this a good leaving alone. They will attempt to move on. Maybe they'll move on to Epstein. I can't believe they're still saying Trump is sending in the National Guard in D.C. to distract from Epstein, and Trump's meeting with Putin to distract from Epstein. That is literally what they're saying on MSNBC. Excuse me. I do not think it's working. Wacky Harry Enton, again, getting out of line in on CNN, explaining that that their attempt to say everything Trump does is a distraction from Epstein because Trump's in the Epstein files. It isn't working. I kind of thought it was a mistake 2 weeks ago when Trump said it was a hoax and and he wasn't going to waste time on this. But again, looks like Trump was right. No one is really concerned about Epstein at this point. Watch.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Now. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe is applying here a little bit, but has it impacted? Have you seen numbers that have impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point, he was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him, considering where he was at this point in term number one.
What do you think is behind?
Ooh, they hate that. They hate that. I'm all for releasing the Epstein files. Let's see it. Let's see who went to the island. Let's get Bill Clinton under oath and Hillary Clinton under oath and talk about Epstein. Let's do that. I'm all in. But I can't even imagine what's going to happen to these people later this week when Trump meets with Putin. Now, Trump he said yesterday he'll know 2 minutes into the meeting. He'll know whether Putin is sincere. Zelensky, as of now, is not invited. That's fine. Trump knows where Zelensky stands. Trump is determined to end this, like he's ended like 6 other conflicts around the globe. He's ended wars that we didn't even know were going on. Armenia, Rwanda, Pakistan, and India. Trump loves this stuff. And again, this is Trump's greatest strength. He wants to make deals. He is not an ideologue. We saw for 3 years, Joe Biden never even mentioned stopping the war in Ukraine. Hell, he wanted it. He wanted to escalate. He wanted to continue to send billions to Ukraine for a war they could not win. Someday, maybe we'll find the real motivation for that. But Trump came in and he wants to make deals. That's what he does. That's what he enjoys. That's what he's good at, because he's not an ideologue. He's not, he doesn't have these ulterior motives. It's just, he might want to win the Nobel Prize. He might want credit. He always wants credit. But what he's doing is righteous. And he should be trying to do this, not only to stop the killing, but to save us billions and billions of dollars. And he's great at it. And they hate that. They hate the fact that he's just going in there, and his motive appears to me to be pure. Let's just end the killing, end the fighting, end the wars. That's a great thing. You can criticize him for a lot of things, but I think in this regard, his heart is in the right place. He's looking at these things saying, this is stupid. This is dumb. People are dying every day for what? A sliver of land? That's the way most people look at this war. Not Joe Biden, not Democrats, but most people look at this war and say, what is the point? They're fighting over some land. Let's just make a deal. Let's just find a compromise and stop kids, Russian and Ukrainian kids, from dying. We're going to look back and going to say like there were 1 million people dead or whatever it is. Never quite know, 500,000, and say, what was that for? What did that accomplish? And we're never going to have a good answer. But Scott Jennings, as usual, brings it on CNN last night and points out that Trump is really good at this. Trump is ending wars, saving lives around the globe. And of course, one of the 5 Democrats on the panel on the Abby Phillips show says, no, he's not ending wars. And Jennings is just in disbelief. They can't concede anything. They can't give him credit for anything, even though You had the Azerbaijan guy and the Armenia guy in the White House, in the Oval Office, reach across, shake hands, and agree to stop fighting after 30 years. We all saw that. That's undeniable. But this lady, she denies it. Go ahead.
The president has solved like 7 conflicts this year. I'm willing to give him some latitude to talk to Vladimir Putin and break the deadlock and try to move us toward a place where the killing comes to an end, because I think that's what we should all be praying for.
He actually hasn't solved 7 conflicts. There's been a lot of talk about that.
What reality do you live in? He's literally got these guys in the White House where they're signing documents and shaking hands.
Signing
Acknowledge the man is solving peace.
India questioned about whether that was an actual
deal. It happens on almost a weekly basis. Just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it.
And I will also acknowledge that Donald Trump seems to have an affinity for Vladimir Putin in a way. No, you're not going to get away with calling me a liar. I know that's like the line you have to throw out, but I'm not lying.
You're lying.
Nobody's lying about anything.
You're lying. Yes, you are. She just said he's not solving conflicts. And Jennings points out they're signing documents, peace treaties. So yeah, that's it. They're just signing documents. What more do you need to see, lady? They're signing documents that end the war and bring peace to a region. As he pointed out, the Rwanda conflict lasted 30 years, millions dead, and Trump quietly ended that. And their answer is, he didn't really end it. All they did was sign a deal and shake hands in the White House. He didn't really end it. These people are insane. That's what we're dealing with. And I look forward to Friday. I'm hoping something really comes of this. I'm hoping Putin really does want to end this. You imagine if Trump ends this and brings and drops sanctions and there's no more fighting, no more killing, and they live side by side in peace. Again, obviously, he will deserve the Nobel Prize, but I think it's even better if they don't give it to him because they just hate him. And we all know that he ended another war. And you know what happens? If there's some other skirmish, he'll stop that too. Because that's what he loves to do. That's what he's really good at. And they hate him for it. They want the war to continue. They want him to fail. This week, Friday, in Alaska, they want his efforts to fail. They are so consumed with hatred of the man that they can't even give him that he's pretty good at diplomacy, that he's pretty good at ending wars and just talking sense. It's so unusual. I say this all the time, to have a guy this pragmatic, this practical. He's not, again, an ideologue. He just goes in there and says, this is dumb. All these people dying, let's end it. Let's find a way. And that's his goal. That's where his whole team concentrates on ending this, not saying, oh, Putin started it. Putin's a bad guy. Yeah, he is. Yes, he started it. Yes, it's his fault. But what's your alternative? To just say, keep it going because Ukraine good? Because Ukraine was attacked? Yeah, they were, by a bigger, more powerful nuclear-equipped nation. It would be nice to see it end. And if that means that Zelensky has to give up some of the Donbass region, well, great. So what? It's land. It's not lives. People are going to continue dying if this fails, and Democrats and the media are just hoping it fails. All right, before we go, you want an update on the Cincinnati situation? As we know, there was that vicious beating a couple weeks ago. A gang of, 12, 15 black people attacked 3 white people and almost killed a white woman, Holly, who's made the media rounds with her smashed up face. It looked like she was dead on the streets, as you recall, bleeding out, and people were just beating this guy, one guy just kicking him. They've arrested 6 now, 6 of the 12, 15 perpetrators. And the local leaders in Cincinnati, we have a real problem with our inner city elected Democrats. They are so obsessed with race, everything, just like Ayanna Pressley, just like Brandon Johnson, just like Karen Bass, just like Michelle Wu, everything is about race. You think this would be different. You watch people on your on the streets of your city where you're elected to lead get beaten to within an inch of your life, and a group of Democrats held a press conference and, yes, blamed the victim. Do we have the cut from this woman blaming one of the white guys? I'm not sure why. He started it, I guess. Yeah, talk about childish. Yeah, he started it, and then he got beaten the crap out of. Had the crap beaten out of him on camera on the streets. And their problem is not with the vicious mob, the violent mob on the streets of their city. It's with the victim. Watch this.
6 individuals were charged with aggravated assault, which is a felony. The white guy incited or urged 6 other people to commit a felony.
The method by which this situation has been handled raises serious questions as to whether there's bias involved in the investigation. It also brings into question the possibility of a lack of integrity and whether there's something else to hide.
They're upset that the 6 people who were punching and kicking and almost killed a lady were charged, and the guy who got the hell beat, he wasn't charged. And it was the white guy. They want the white guy charged. You have to go to the hospital to charge him. He got absolutely pummeled. And when you see the video, it's sickening. We've played it a few times. They're just kicking him when he's down. And the elected officials in the city say it's his fault. Hell, you have one elected leader who said she was grateful for the whole thing at Victoria Parks or Sparks or whatever. The elected Democrat said she was grateful for the whole thing, has not retracted, not apologized. There's a problem in Cincinnati. Hopefully voters wake up, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I'm waiting for Ayanna Pressley to chime in and blame the victims in this because they're white. That's all that matters to Ayanna. But all right, that will do it for this Tuesday. What a wild day. What a wild week. And it's going to get crazier. God, I hope things go well in Alaska. I have my doubts. I'm not sure Putin's on board with this, but man, cannot wait till the media reacts if Trump actually ends that war. It's just going to be epic. That will do it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is The Callahan Show, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my God. Is she crazy?
Thank you. Thank you
Wow.
all. Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Oh, too many thank yous.